welcome our panel, which is entitled "Security Sector Reform for Libya: An Obligation for Future." In this panel, we have three distinguished speakers. The first speaker will be Dr. Murat Aslan. He is the author of the Security Sector Reform in Libya, which was published by SETA with the collaboration of CESRIC. It's based on field work, and Murat Aslan is going to speak about security sector reform in Libya. And our second speaker will be Salim Murad. He is the Principal Security Sector Reform Director of the United Nations in Libya, mission in Libya. And our final speaker will be Dr. Mustafa El-Sakızlı. He is the General Manager of the Libyan Program for the reintegration and development. And then we are going to take questions from the audience. First of all, I'm going to start with Dr. Murat. Dr. Murat, the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Well, security sector reform for Libya is really a tough business because you must address many different dynamics. Include many different things. For instance, social and cultural perception of Libyans. It's a fact, and it makes Libya a sui generis location for having security forces in accordance with the needs of the society. And also history, that means legacy of Gaddafi era, because Gaddafi was an authoritarian leader, and he had built a kind of security mechanism that was tiered apart. There was a certain core security forces only to protect or committed to protect Gaddafi, and also some other security forces to defend country, even though they were destined to stay at home, especially after the Chad wars. So security structure, for instance, let's take police. Police was well organized, though the hierarchy that have police under one significant check mechanism was continuously transforming pending to the preferences of Gaddafi regime. What does that mean? That means there must be a culture in a country for security, and Libya was lacking of that. So another dynamic that we had focused on for this project was the revolution itself, because it was a revolution encouraged by NATO, you know that, and NATO assisted it. But unfortunately, NATO excluded itself from the ground as far as Gaddafi regime was toppled down. So what happened? Now we have a huge country, and with many different armed groups that were not previously army or military or police forces, but they had organized themselves as civilian. Another issue that then is the anatomy of the revolution. So each province was somehow started their own revolution in the designated area that they are reigning over it. And then we have concluded the revolution, though we had some successes and also failures in this revolution and afterwards. Unfortunately, there was a disinterest of international actors to start a state-building effort that will embrace the overall Libya, keep it united, but they were disinterested and just pursued their interests. What does that mean? That means any country will support whoever she wants, pending to the interests, perceived interests. On the other hand, there's another reality for any security sector. It is threat and risk analysis. If you want to build an architecture to protect country, you must be aware of what the risks are and what the threats are. And it was lacking. That means nobody had an assessment about it. So we have provincial or regional military or armed groups. Police was totally under the municipalities and no central hierarchy for that, and a dispersed structure. So that means what? Insecurity or destabilization. So under the cloud of all these concerns, we had investigated what the security structure is, the current one, what the needs are, and what the security architecture ought to be. By that way, there was a kind of comparison with the past, current, and the future, and we tried to establish alternative courses to reach not only one course or option, but many, but we graded each of them pending to their availability for the threats and risks. But threats and risks are not only about external ones. For instance, armed groups themselves are a kind of risk for internal stability because they are competing. On the other hand, we know that there was a Daesh in the region, and okay, they are underground right now, not that much effective, but we know the nature of terrorism, so we must care that reality. So Libya must have first a strategic architecture. That means a higher, supreme architecture. Second thing, we have Ministry of Internal Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and they do address different security architectures as a normal country does. What does that mean? The security sector reform must be beyond the ministries, but at the state level, directly coordinated and motivated by the highest authority. Another issue is morale and motivation, which is really disregarded when such kind of projects are started, say Afghanistan or some other African countries, for instance. Because if the morale and motivation is lacking, that means there will be challenges on the ground at the societal strata. Another issue that we had focused is intelligence structure, because today Libyan intelligence system needs to be not only reformed but rebuilt. What does that mean? This effort, intelligence building effort, must be specifically in the hands of Libyans, because this structure cannot be transferred to the initiative of external powers. Then they will create a kind of organization that will specifically serve for themselves. And the armed groups, the basic challenge, I mean, if they will accept any undertaking to start a reformation or not. And we had gathered many workshops with many Libyans, including leaders of some armed groups, and they were actually ready to, leave the arms, start a civilian life, but they claimed the conditions. And unfortunately, they were right, because right after we concluded the interviews and workshops, Haftar attacked to Tripoli on 4th of April. What does that mean? They have a willingness to go back home, have a civilian, job or affinity, but the conditions, which is a challenge by a warlord or a general or somebody else to be another Gaddafi, and they state that means they were right actually. Well, under these conditions, what was and what is the nature of or desired security sector reform in Libya? I think there must be three basic principles or three basic tenets for that. First, it must be inclusive and based on having a capable security architecture. It must be inclusive because if you exclude only one portion, that means they will challenge in a certain neighborhood, because the structure of Libyan society is based on the provincial and regional fragmentation. Mostly people say east, west, and south. No, I don't believe in that, because Libya cannot be typified pending to main regions, but specifically by each towns. The police force, the municipality, the councils, military councils, they all sometimes are competing in specific cities. So it must be inclusive. Second thing, the ultimate aim must be united Libya, not partitioned. Because we know that once the current status quo, for instance, becomes a permanent one, then Libya is divided. Who wants it? I think the question is this. So after the security reformation, there must be a system that will keep all Libya united, preserving the dignity, unity of the overall territory and also the public. And final tenet is civilian and democratic control. We just scanned the views of the Libyans on the ground, and there's one question, specific question, and everybody answered in a similar way. No exception. They said, we do not want another Gaddafi, because the revolution was against Gaddafi, against authoritarianism. So if we have one more or another, then, okay, what has changed? So it must be civilian, it must be democratic. And the norms must be, observe the culture and social structure of Libya, but it doesn't mean that we will downgrade from the democratic standards, which is universally, recognized. And the principles, we discussed this issue with many experts all over the world. Okay, civilian and democratic control, that's the number one, sounded everywhere. But there's another issue that's very important, it's political commitment and decisiveness. Because once there's a willingness of the political authority, then it is, okay, achievable. If any force at the political level impedes it, stops it, that means no. That means we will have a problem in a certain location because of the structure of the society. Another issue is rule of law or appropriate codification. And this is essential, because if everything is just by words, then it's just like an air. You can breathe once and later then nothing. So there must be a legal amendment to start a security sector reformation. And by this amendment, reformation itself must be institutionalized. Not only the security sector, but the reform itself. That means if you remove one individual from the circles of the reformation body, then this circle must go round. That's really essential for Libya. And the issue is loyalty to Libyan state, not external powers, not, any private company, not a certain segment of society, but the overall state, the overall public. So this is actually a defining nature. Another one is transparency and accountability. If one is in charge of, say, for instance, general staff or army or intelligence, democratic institutions must ask questions on why you did it. Otherwise, we will have micro-level authoritarian leaders. Another one is professionality. That means we do want an army, an intelligence, a border security, appropriate for the missions that will be implemented on the ground in terms of age, in terms of education, training, in terms of, professional understanding while, implementing the mission. So we will just get the corruption away. Another issue then is discipline with professionalism. And I said inclusiveness. And it doesn't mean that we will exclude all the structure, but we may include the structure, but with a proper vetting system and with a bonus system. What I mean is that if you are determined to build an army, you can accept the ones who qualifies pending to the identified standards. By that way, everybody will question first himself or herself and say, okay, I'm appropriate for the army. If not, you can just pay a bonus or offer a position in a different segment of the state, or you can just persuade them and let them go. Because if you sacrifice qualifications, the same type of desecuritization in Libya will keep continue. And institutionalization of the security structure overall. What I mean is that there must be a hierarchy, there must be a bureaucracy, and there must be body of institutions with clear lines of authority connected within each other. And if you remove one single individual, okay, no problem, you can replace it or her. Technology and having an asset-rich system, which is really smart, because Libya is a huge country. You can't have individuals, only to observe what's going on in terms of security. And technology will first ease security efforts. Second thing, there will be a check mechanism that corruption will be prevented. And at the meantime, technology means no gap in terms of human fault. And there must be an inspection mechanism. That means the one who practices on the ground must be different from the one who will inspect. By that way, you can easily identify what's going on. Otherwise, no. So, for all these efforts, we need first popular support, political will, adequate resources, and Libya has it, and personnel reform, maybe with a pensioning system, for instance, and a charming benefit system. So if the other party or the challenging one pays more than the regular army, then there's no meaning for them. And rejection of all external interferences. Legitimate Libyan government may cooperate with other armies. Everybody does it. But it doesn't mean that somebody will impose something, impose a regime, for instance. And consent of not only armed groups, but all institutions. I think this will, end my presentation. But I want to present one latest thing, if you allow me. It's about having
yes, please.
Security strategy and policy for Libya. This is the first issue. Second thing, there must be a vision. So we drafted a vision in our research. It's Libya's security sector will be reformed to achieve safe and secure Libya based on sustainable internal order and protection against external threats, in any case within the limits of the rule of law and in the way to serve Libya's people at all. This was our vision, and we recommend this vision for Libya. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Murat. This is a very important presentation, and we can easily argue that the SSR is one of the important pillars of the Libyan future and the future of the stability in Libya. As the keynote speakers mentioned in their speech, you are also mentioning the importance of the security sector reform in Libya. This will be a important turning point. Now, I would like to give the floor Mr. Salim Murad, and he is going to give his speech about SSR in Libya. Mr. Salim, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank SETA, especially Dr. Murat Aslan and his team for this opportunity. This is a real pleasure to be with you today. And also, I was delighted to listen to the keynote speaker, Minister of Defense of Libya, Mr. Namroush, and Minister of Defense of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Akar. SSR in Libya, it's a key matter that is really essential for return of Libya to the real civilian state and provide security to the Libyan people. Security, as my previous speaker said, security is a must. It's a need for the population, and it's a key matter before any development or any return to normalcy is there. SSR should be there from the beginning. Now we have a fragmented Libya, fragmented security architecture on the ground, where its situation is very deteriorating and taking the country to a very difficult position, where the people of Libya are paying the price, are suffering from the consequences of the fragmented security and the lack of security in Libya. On top of that, it was the military movement and the offensive on Tripoli on 4th of April 2019, and before that, all the security event that took place in Libya, and we are now seeing a huge role, and is not a constructive role for all the armed groups that are existing east and west of Libya. This is what needs to be addressed. And the solution is a SSR DDR. SSR is the key solution. What does that mean? I will go to the key point that I want to share with you in this opportunity. First, the SSR is a national approach that cannot be fragmented and take it in pieces and in parts. SSR is the approach which should be taken by the whole Libya under a political umbrella, and from the very beginning of any political discussion in Libya, SSR should be present. Security architecture should be addressed in any political dialogue and not to be considered as an annex or a follow-up to any political dialogue. What the security architecture would look like should be addressed from the beginning. This is a very key important. Libya has witnessed a multiple approach to solve the Libyan solution since 2011 via a political dialogue. And the key thing that it should be present is the security solution and the security architecture on the table in any political dialogue. My second point is what we see from the security sector reform is a civilian state. Wherever it was decided, the security architecture and the structure of the army and police should be under a civilian control. Without having the civilian control and any supervision by a civilian government and civilian institution, it will not work. And my third point is the monopoly of arms. Whatever that architecture would look like, the monopoly of use of arms, to own the arms and the weapons in Libya should go back to the government. And there is only one army and one police force. And this is what is the request of all Libyans across Libya, east, west, and south. They want to see a unified army and a unified police forces. Multiplicity of security bodies and security structure, it will go into competition, is not a good thing for Libya. We see it now on the ground. We see local security by armed group in cities and within the same city. What we have a result, always competition between those armed groups. What we're seeing in the West is really alarming. What we need is to include all this security apparatus under one unity command, which is the Libyan army under a civilian control. How that will be done? It will be done from the beginning in any political dialogue. In any political dialogue. And that should be addressed as the LPDF is approaching. And before that, it was the Khairat agreement. And what we see it in the future, this is just one body. What we see also that is needed for the security sector reform in Libya, that it should be done in conjunction, hands in hands, with the robust DDR. That is really crucial. You cannot separate those two processes from each other. I mean, there is a lot of element within the armed group which need to be reintegrated into the government institution, not only the army and the police, but all the government. The army and the police, they have their condition for receiving the armed group element individual, and that this is the key thing. Between DDR and SSR, we don't want to forget there is no security vacuum to be there at any moment. Any security vacuum created or allowed, it will be a safe haven for the terrorist group, ISIS or else, that can fill that gap. It's a key then to have a well-coordinated process between DDR and SSR under a national approach. SSR and DDR cannot be done in one city, in one region. It should be a national approach. That's why unification of the army is a key element also for the SSR. Unification of the army is important. There is army personnel in all Libya and training centers in all Libya and units in all Libya. They need to be unified. And this is an important thing. What is the approach to the SSR? SSR is a long and laborious and time-consuming process. No SSR, no building of the army can be done in 1 month, 6 months, even 1 year. You need years to build the army. What's the solution? Here, I will come to you and say, we have two approaches, a bottom-up approach and a top-down approach. What does that mean? The top-down approach is the approach how we solve the security architecture, how we see it from a top-down approach. That's mean under a civilian-controlled government. Who will be the Minister of Defense? What will be the relation? Who will be the Commander-in-Chief? How the Chief of Staff will work under the Minister of Defense, and then all the way down. Within the uniformed personnel, I mean the army, under the Chief of Staff, it's easy unification. And the issue is at the political level. I know that it will take time. I know there is a lot of strings to pull, politically and otherwise, internally and outside the country. Until that happens, we need to focus on the bottom-up approach. The bottom-up approach, as you know, the army within the uniform structure under the Chief of Staff, there is a lot of training camps. There is a training activity going on. There is at the soldier level, at the command and staff college, all the training camps, unified and specialized and general training for normal soldiers. That's why any support from any state or any government to the Libyan army on this technical level is very welcome. I'm happy to hear that the government of Turkey has supported the Libyan army by providing mine action teams, which is really needed, immediately needed. This is the example from the bottom-up approach. many has been could be done on that level. I will go back to the United Nations and UNSMIL. UNSMIL has been mandated by the Security Council to coordinate international support, including security support. And we have a forum to do that, which is the Security Sector Working Group, who can have and host all military and defense attaché and police attaché from all government to coordinate their support among together and not to have any duplicity or conflict in supporting the Libyan armed forces and the Libyan army. This is a key element. And what I would like to add here, that this comes alone with the DDR approach. And DDR approach, it need to be careful and really appreciate what has been done so far in this regard. Has been interrupted by the conflict from time to time, but need to restart again. I know that most of the armed group are keen to drop their arm and return to a civilian government, but we need to help them, to give them what they need, what they are asking for that. All this could be done. Again, I'm looking for a political dialogue that can bring all the Libyan, and we have a golden opportunity, which is the LPDF, to move forward what has been done last week in Tunis. I know it needs more work to be done. We are here to do that. And before that, an important event happened, which is the ceasefire agreement signed in Geneva on 23rd of October. This is a historic ceasefire agreement, which put an end, which put an official end for all hostilities in Libya. After a devastating conflict for almost 16 months, we had a peace now in Libya. The gun are silenced, and according to a ceasefire agreement signed by the two forces on the ground, the two major forces on the ground, which we see them, and the focus will be in implementation in the center, where the confrontation line is in the center of Libya. That will allow a peaceful return to the normal state, civilian state in Libya, and that will open the door for any security sector reform in Libya. I will end here and will be happy to take questions. Thank you all for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Salim, for your presentation. I think you have many difficulties in terms of security sector reform and in Libya, and hope everything will go well in terms of the dynamics in the context of Libyan political process. Now, I would like to give the floor Dr. Mustafa Sakızlı. Dr. Mustafa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Murad. I would like to thank SETA for this event and for the great work that has been done in the last year and a half or so. We worked together to publish this great report that was a joint work of Turkish researchers, experts in SSR, and Libyan researchers and Libyan practitioners and international experts. This report, the security sector reform report, in my opinion, is one of the most important documents that we have as Libyans now. We have, I think, two main documents that were written in participation of many Libyans. One of them is Towards a White Paper that was published in 2013, which was supervised by the United Nations, plus the participation of Libyan partners from different ministries. And now we have the security sector report that was published lately by SETA, CESRIC, and the LPRD. And I was honored to be one of the participants in this report under the supervision of Professor Murat Aslan. Libya, as we all know, is a fragile state, or let's say a failed state. Failed states need to be rebuilt. Institutions have to be rebuilt. Institutions are very weak. Institutions are corrupt and inefficient and fragmented, divided. Therefore, the approach of security sector reform in Libya should be an approach of peace building and state building. The first step towards cure is the right analyzing of the illness. We have to analyze the current situation very well in Libya, the failure of the different institutions, the conflict, the fragmentation, in order to be able to find solutions. And this was the approach that we have used in the research. From the first day, we decided that this research should analyze the situation very well in Libya, then provide not only recommendations, but solutions that can be implemented. During the research, we had also in parallel another research on countering violent extremism. And now we are launching a third research on public administration reform, because reforming the institutions and rebuilding a state needs to have a holistic, comprehensive approach. The security sector is part of the public sector, part of the governmental sector. So it is very important to have a general and a holistic plan for reforming the public sector, public administration reform, reforming the security sector, and also the rest of the projects that must be included in state building, such as socio-economic development, such as development of small business and the private sector, especially in a country like Libya, that most of the people are servants or public servants that take monthly salaries from the government. So a holistic approach is very important. Security sector cannot be implemented in a vacuum by itself. Security sector needs to have in parallel public administration reform, DDR, and also socio-economic development. Therefore, the solution to Libya's failure, fragility, must be comprehensive and holistic. And that is, it has to be a state building approach, including public administration reform, security sector reform, socio-economic development, and empowerment. SSR, security sector reform, cannot again be implemented without analyzing the current situation in Libya. And if we take a look at the situation in Libya, we find that we have two main challenges and two main issues. The first challenge and the first issue is that we do not have strong, efficient, united security sector institutions such as the army, the police, the intelligence, the border guard. These institutions are fragmented, divided. These institutions lack command and control. These institutions lack transparency, efficiency. We can say that many of these institutions don't have from a security sector view, except the name. Many of them, they have the name, but when you dig deep inside these institutions, you find out that these institutions are not strong institutions or efficient institutions. So restructuring, training, laws, legislations, command and control needs to be rebuilt. And I prefer the word rebuilt, or maybe reform in its English meaning, rather than islah in Arabic, which means reform but in a soft way, or trying to revive whatever you have. What we need in Libya is not reviving what we have. We need to rebuild our institutions. This is the first issue. The second issue, which is very crucial and very important, and without it, there shall not be any successful security sector reform, and that is tackling the issue of armed groups through DDR. DDR, demobilization, disarmament, and reintegration of armed groups, name it militias, name it revolutionaries, warriors, whatever, any armed groups beside the official institutions, the security apparatus, need to be demobilized, reintegrated, and disarmed, or maybe reintegration leading to demobilization, leading to disarmament. This is very important and very crucial. We have been calling for this since 2011, that the main challenge that Libya faces is these militias, these armed groups, with good intentions or bad intentions from their commanders and their members. They need to be looked at in a positive way by reintegrating them into the state. So these two issues must be tackled, but the solutions that are available in front of us are many in DDR. We should not take only one approach, and that is of integrating all armed groups, either as groups or individuals, into the military or the police. There are better options. Many of them, according to the statistics that and the interviews we conducted at LPRD, the majority of them are interested in building their own business, having their own business initiatives. Majority, only 15% of them selected to join the security sector, and that is either the army or the police. The rest are keen to start their civil life, to start their own businesses, which is very important, and also very helpful in rebuilding Libya and its economy and socio-economic empowerment to the Libyan people. So DDR is also very important. It goes in parallel with SSR. SSR cannot succeed without DDR, and DDR shall not succeed without SSR. Many of these young people or their commanders would hand their weapons and go to civil life if they get a better opportunity, but with a condition, as Professor Murad has mentioned, that there is a security sector that is professional, a security sector that will protect the people, a security sector that is not politicized, a security sector that will not lead to another coup d'etat or another war in Libya. So SSR must go hand in hand with DDR. The other issue that is very important also, that must be tackled in a very well-studied way, that is countering violent extremism. Violent extremist groups like Daesh, Al-Qaeda, or other groups that Libya suffered from, usually they are taken advantage by military dictators who would like to take power in a country. And they also take advantage, these extremist armed groups, they take advantage of the issue of rising of another dictatorship in the country. So violent extremist group, as we did in our research with SETA, we must know the root causes for their spread in the country. We must deal with these root causes in a comprehensive way. We must deal with them according to the culture. We must also prevent the youth from joining them. We must also deal with them in an intelligent security plan that can get rid of them rather than dealing with them in ways that can empower them. So SSR, DDR, and CVE go hand in hand. Also, my last point would be around the importance of socio-economic development, and especially SMEs, small and medium enterprises and entrepreneurship. Going through all the studies that were done around DDR, around SSR, and around CVE, the main solution for DDR is providing youth with small business and entrepreneurship. Therefore, our state and our government and the decision makers must provide youth with initiatives, incubators, funding to allow them to start their own business in order to move them from arms to small business and economic development. Also, in public administration reform and SSR, many people would have to find another job or another option rather than being part of the security sector that is overcrowded or part of the public administration that is overcrowded. And the only venue for them would be the private sector, small business, entrepreneurship. And also when it comes to countering violent extremism, according to our study, many of these young youth join these extremist violent groups or criminal violent groups because they don't have another option. They don't have a better option. They don't have a future or a job or a small business that they can involve themselves in and see a better future through it. So socioeconomic development, and luckily in Libya, we are a country that doesn't lack resources, neither financial resources, nor opportunities in the economy, in different sectors of the economy. Therefore, socioeconomic opportunities, entrepreneurship, SMEs can help all these projects for state building and institution building and rebuilding the country, including security sector reform. Of course, how can we achieve all these state building projects? Are they achievable? Of course, they are achievable. We need to raise awareness amongst the youth, amongst the Libyan public on these issues. People must understand that security sector reform is essential in rebuilding Libya, secure, prosperous Libya, and that rebuilding such a security sector will take years. They must understand that the issue of militias can be solved through DDR. Raising awareness among the Libyan people on these issues and the youth is very important. Countering violent extremism also has its solutions, and the root causes can be dealt with. And they must also understand that socioeconomic development, work, the culture of small business, the culture of entrepreneurship, the culture of working, vocational training, and so on, is important in rebuilding their future and rebuilding the Libyan state. It is achievable and it's possible. It needs efforts. It needs unity. And most of all, this vision should be adopted by our decision makers our politicians, our governments, and also our partners, UN, UNSMIL, Turkey, our European neighbors, whomever is willing to support Libya, support rebuilding the Libyan state, its institutions, should have a pitch and should support such projects of SSR, DDR, CVE, socio-economic development for the youth. I think SETA and our team has succeeded in providing the Libyan state, the Libyan decision makers, and our partners with two researches on SSR and CVE, SSR, DDR, and CVE, that can pave the way for rebuilding Libya, its institutions, its security, a secure, stable, prosperous Libya. I thank SETA, and I am happy to participate in this forum.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa, Dr. Mustafa. I would like to thank also all of the participants. We have a couple of questions. Some of them are directly related to the security sector reform in Libya. Some of are related to the future of Libyan political turmoil. So I would like to ask all of the questions, and I'm going to give you, 2 minutes to answer the questions. The first question is about the security sector reform, and I would like to ask this question to Dr. Murad. Dr. Murad, the question is about how do you foresee the course of SSR? Specifically, what is the process? And the second question is about what can be the role of the United Nations to promote security in the future of Libya. This question goes to Mr. Salim. And Sakızlı, you are also talking about the role of civil society organizations, but we have the same question, I think, the same points about the civil society organizations. They represent the popular attitude. What do you take by the role of civil society organization? You mentioned, I think, but if you want to explain this, questions, please do not hesitate. And we have also two questions, actually. I would like to also ask these two questions to all of you. The first one is about how would a unity government impact prospect of a security sector reform in Libya? The second question, which states or countries could contribute to SSR along with Turkey? In what capacity? So I would like to start with Dr. Murad, and then Salim and Mustafa Sakızlı. Each of you have 2 minutes, okay? Can you turn on microphone, Mr. Murad? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, I think there must be an institutionalization of reform itself, as I had said. That means there must be an individual responsible for committing all reformation activities and with some subgroups. By that way, yeah, you can then persuade people that there's a willingness, political willingness. This is the first issue. Second one, we have a drafted constitution, but no referendum yet. But constitutions require stake mechanism. What does that mean? The lines of authority, in other words, who will be responsible for what, and who will be, who would report to whom? These two questions are essential to answer. So the constitution and affiliated laws must include such kind of topics. Otherwise, there will be a kind of ambiguity in terms of reporting mechanism and also selection mechanism. Another one, I think Libya needs a consultation mechanism in terms of security. Well, in Turkey or in any other country, you may not need it, but in Libya, you need it because now we have a fragmented nature. Well, they may not have an authority, but this consultation process at least may have the different contradicting interests come to a certain line at the minimum level, and by that way, it may provide stability. Another issue is about force structure. There are options for that, and all issues like intelligence, border, and coastal security, we have options, and we depicted them. For instance, is it going to be as military zones, regular army, or a joint army? If it's military zone, it inspires the current structure and also former Soviet term. On the other hand, if it's regular army, well, you will have army, air force, navy, or police structure under MOI, Ministry of Interior. But if you have joint structure, it's really expensive. That's why the United States spent much more money than the other countries, because I believe that the US obtained the same benefit from the army as the other countries does, but spent more. Not logical. This is my perception. So it must be a feasible solution to have an army in terms of human, cost, and also durability. Finally, we have two issues. Lastly, it's about personnel reformation. We have identified 6-step approach. That means there must be a phased approach towards personnel reformation, and it's one of the critical issues, and also logistical reformation, which I call it as WEAL. That means weapon, equipment, asset, and logistic system. Because now Libyan army does not have inventory. It has collapsed during the revolution. So we must first conduct a needs analysis, present what we have in the inventory and also on the ground, and later then a procurement process. But whatever the process is, for the latest question, I do not see any kind of profit for the Libyans to have a foreign company assume SSR as a kind of job. If once a company does it, it doesn't make any sense, because it's the same as Wagner. Wagner is on the ground to fight, and another company to start a reformation will profit from the procurements. So it must be purely Libyan driven, but there may be consultations with the other nationalities. So this is my view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mustafa?
Yes, Dr. Murad, concerning the role of civil society organizations, it's very important. You know, one of the main challenges that we faced in our DDR program before the civil war erupted in 2014 was the understanding of the people. You have to explain to the people what does SSR mean. You have to explain to the people that we need to rebuild an army, we need to rebuild our police, and it's a long process that takes time. We need to include them, inform them, because you know the general population might think that, okay, we have an army, we have a police, these militias, we can just order them, okay, give us your weapons and go home, as people used to say. So you need to inform the people, and civil society organizations, municipalities, women, youth can play a role. Media, of course, can play a role explaining to the people that state building is an effort that everybody has to join in. Security sector is a long process. It needs a lot of patience. It needs planning. DDR takes a long time. Reintegration of ex-combatants and revolutionaries is an issue and is a project that takes time, so that people can support and help. Else, if you don't include civil society and the general public, you might get resistance that will not allow these projects to succeed.
Okay, thank you. I guess Mr. Rashid lost his internet connection. If you want to answer the question regarding the role of United Nations, Dr. Murad or Mustafa Sakızlı, you want to answer these questions? How do you see the future of United Nations role in security sector reform?
Okay, then to Mustafa Sakızlı.
By the way, we have very limited time. Maybe
okay, I think
make some points.
Yes, I think the United Nations, UNSMIL, can play an important role. They must include, they are now having a political dialogue. A new government will come out of this dialogue. Security sector reform, DDR, public administration reform, socioeconomic development, state building issues must be included for the next coming government and should be part of their program and their agenda. It should be enforced on the coming government to rebuild Libya. Else, a new government will come and they will be lost like previous governments.
Okay, thank you, and I would like to thank you, all of you. And our next panel will start at 4:20 p.m. in Istanbul time and 3:20 p.m. in Tripoli time. So the next subject will be the challenges for the SSR. And thank you for all of your contribution, and thank you for your listening us. And goodbye.
Thank you very much.